Mi, fa, sol, mi, re, mi, do, re. I'm Chris Murphy with 3 years of seminary experience where I learned the chant. And then sometime in Minnesota as well, working with the choir as the second string choir director. I did manage to pick up the chant theory rather well at the seminary. I cannot sight read, so occasionally I'll have to ask someone else to sing something for me. But I do know the theory, and I can teach you the theory. This class will mostly be just an overview, so you have some knowledge as to what the square notes mean, and not an in-depth course. That being said, chant is often seen as free-flowing, not much structure. It's often seen as difficult to understand, especially for those who have been educated with modern notation. Gregorian chant, the notation itself obviously predates modern notation, and the melodies themselves predate, a lot of the melodies predate Christ. Some of our chant melodies come from the Jews, from the Jewish temple traditions. In fact, there's a story of a rabbi in Rome who was listening to a boys' choir in Rome sing an Alleluia. And after that was finished, he turns to the cardinal who is escorting him and says, "We sing the same exact thing. Same exact melody. Different words, obviously, in the Hebrew language, but the same exact melody." So the chant melodies have a lot of history behind them. Chant is referred to as Gregorian chant, but that's mostly because Pope Gregory the Great codified the chant, pulled things together, pulled melodies together, and set up a structure, an organized system. And it wasn't until much later that we actually have the square note notation. Most of the time, actually all the time, chant was learned by memorization. Until someone started writing notes, and then the notes would normally be written like this. And the words written under here. Okay. Where does this note start? What exactly is this interval? You really didn't know. It was mostly a sight guide to trigger someone's memory. Oh, I'm supposed to go up here. Oh yeah, that's right. Now I remember. It wasn't anything that precise. Let me grab this book here. Let me get the date here. Excuse me. It's somewhere around the year 1000, a Benedictine monk Guido d'Orazio, circa 1000, was teaching a hymn to St. John to a boys' choir. And he noticed that the first note of each phrase was one tone step higher. So that gave him the names for the notes. Pat is copying a packet, and so you'll actually get a copy of that hymn. The first phrase, ut queat laxis, the first syllable, ut. This marker's running out of gas here. Ut. The second phrase was resonat fibris. The first syllable of that phrase was re. Third phrase, mira gestorum, first syllable, me. Famuli tuorum, first syllable. Solve polluti. And then labii reaptum. And thus we have the beginning of the note names for our scale. At some point later on, ut was removed. It would have to have been after the year 1600. And I know that because in Shakespeare's play, Love's Labour's Lost, there is a very pedantic character who at one point sings the scale, and he uses ut as the first note. So Shakespeare was the end of the 1500s and beginning of the 1600s. So sometime after the 1600s, ut was removed and replaced by do, which is the first syllable of Domini, for our Lord. T, the last note name, comes from the last two words of the hymn to St. John here. It doesn't start on a T. The last word, Sancta Ioannis. And at the time, in the year 1000, there were no J's in Latin. Every J was written with an I. So it was originally referred to as S-I, but was later changed to T. Just for ease of singing, just to get rid. And thus, we have the scale. Now, based on that, Guido d'Aresio said, okay, well, I've got these note names. I can use this to teach. And it started him thinking, well, if each note is higher, why don't I try to write some sort of gauge so that anyone could know what they are. And he came up with the 4-line staff that we use in Gregorian chant, where each line and space represents one tonal step up. All right. When we get those papers, I will show you that hymn. Okay. So, but until then, I will just move on. One of the major differences between modern notation and Gregorian chant is the number of lines per staff. Gregorian has 4 lines. Modern notation increased the number of lines to 5 because instruments have a wider range of play than the human voice. The human voice does not need more than 4 lines and then maybe a note, an extra line that's a little added up top, but generally the human voice does not need more than 4 lines. We don't have that vocal range. So occasionally there'll be a ledger line above or below in case a note creeps a bit high or a bit low, but okay. The second difference in chant lies with the clefs, and you'll be getting papers on the clefs as well. Chant is based on this scale. Okay? It is based on this scale with the half step being here between the mi and the fa, and the half step being here, the ti and the do. It's based on that scale, and in chant, a note on a line, if a note's on this line, doesn't mean that it has to be a certain particular tone on the keyboard. Chant concerns itself with the location of the half steps. So, let me go. So a normal C scale, and I'll just do that for this. Full steps there. That's a half step. And then back to the half step. In modern notation, if a note is on a specific line or space, it has a specific location on the keyboard. In chant, I can choose any note on the keyboard as my starting note depending on the vocal range. So for example, if I'm singing with a bunch of tenors, I will choose a higher note on the scale to start off with, and if I'm singing with a bunch of basses, it'll be a lower note. So how do we know where the half steps fall? Well, we've got what's called a do clef. And in the stack of papers that Pat has, there is a page on the do clef. This tells us where do is located. All right. So, this tells us where do is located, meaning that our half step is between this line, the top line, and this space. Naughty. Just that half step right there. And then line number 3 is la. This space here is so. Oh, sorry. Yeah, la so. Fa. Line number 2. This space is mi. This line is re. And we're back down to do underneath. So this space is ti. And this line is do. Now, as I was saying, if I wanted to, I can start my scale here. Or I could go even higher. It doesn't matter. I'm keeping this a half step, and I'm keeping this the half step. Do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. I can pull any note as long as I call that note do, a half step to ti, and then so on. Now, next thing to be aware of when we're looking at there's be a page in here, be page, find it? listed as page number 8 on the bottom, do clef. Okay. This shows the do clef as, it can be on any line that the composer chose to put the do clef. Yeah. So, do clef could even be here. It just depends on how the piece is written, where the half steps fall in the chant. This just tells us, that clef will tell us where do is, and then we count the scale from there. There is another clef. There's another clef, which is called the fa clef. Next page. Fa clef does the same thing as the do clef, except that instead of telling us where do is, it tells us where fa is. And thus we're able to determine fa. This line is fa, mi, re, do, ti. Bottom space is la, and then fa, sol, la, ti. And knowing that, knowing the note names, knowing the scale, one can sing about any piece of chant. I can pull out any piece of chant using the scale, tediously work my way through that piece without a keyboard. It's tedious, because oftentimes I have to, this interval, I gotta sing the scale, get that interval down, practice it, but I can get through it without a keyboard. The keyboard makes it quite easy. All right, and then I just wanted to show, it would be your, I believe your fourth sheet here. Hymn to St. John the Baptist. This was the hymn that I was mentioning. The circled notes are and the underlined words show where we get the scale from. Oops, sorry. That's the first phrase. We started on this note, and then the second phrase starts on that note. Okay? So the Re sonare fibri started on this note. Mira starts one note higher. So. Okay, we started here. Next phrase starts fa. And then sol. La. And then the last phrase where we got the T or the C from. So my keyboardist is back. That's fine. So now we might as well just go through this piece, just as so I'm not lecturing the entire time. But the notice this is written with a fa clef. Okay, it tells us that this third line from the bottom is fa. Alright? Count down from there, our first note is a do. And so the first phrase is do, re, fa, re, mi, re. So do, re, fa, re, mi, re. So could you play the first phrase for me? And let's take that and let's sing it with the scale. So it's do, re, fa, re, mi, re. Let's get that note actually. Do and do, re, fa, re, mi, re. Again. Do, re, fa, re, mi, re. One more time. Do, re, fa, re, mi, re. With the words now. Nud, re, at, sees. Second phrase. The note names. Re, re, do, re, mi, mi. And re, do, re, mi, mi. Again. Re, do, re, mi, mi. With the words. Re, sol, la, re, fi, bris. And put the two words together. Nud, re, at, sees, re, sol, la, re, fi, bris. Okay, the next phrase, Mira just got him. Mi, fa, sol, mi, re, mi, do, re. Now, the first note, by the way, is when we're practicing this, is held a little bit, is lengthened. I'll get into that later. Okay? Mi, fa, sol, mi, re, mi, do, re. Again. Mi, fa, sol, mi, re, mi, do, re. One more time. Mi, fa, sol, mi, re, mi, do, re. With the words. Mi, ra, one more time. Put all the phrases together. Next phrase, family tuorum. Fa, sol, la, sol, fa, re, re. Okay. Let's go through family tuorum. Here is fa. Everything together. Okay, next phrase. All right. I'm done talking for a minute. Someone want to read off the note names? Okay.
So, T, so la that is.
So la. Yes.
So,
Yes.
fa,
Mm-hmm.
mi, fa, so, re.
Right. Yes. Get stuck? Just count the spaces. That'll work. Okay, with the note names. Again. Again. With the words. One more time. Everything together. Okay. Then Mo, you had your hand up before, so you get this last phrase of Monty.
La, so, la, so, fa.
I mean, fa, so. With chant, I haven't gone into this, but with chant always reads left to right, bottom up. So that'll be fa, so,
And then la, la.
la, la. Note names? With the words. From the beginning. Okay, the last phrase. Any victims? All right. Can you give it a try, Timothy? Okay.
So, fa.
All right, give Timothy a chance. Well, so this line is fa, right? The second line down from the top. We go one note above fa, and the next one higher than fa is
So.
so. And then down one, of course, for the second is fa. Good. Down another,
Me.
mi. Down another,
Re.
re. Okay. Then down one more.
Do.
Do. And now we skip a line. So count it out. We're at do right now. The line above it is A, and then me. There we go. And then Ray. Even a graceful can do this. Note names. One more time. With the words. One more time. From the beginning now. Okay, we've got through a short antiphon to St. John the Baptist. And okay, so now that we've seen an example of how the scales work, okay, I think we've got time for this, at least to go. Front page. We'll do another exercise. Mass 4. Choir's going to hopefully learn this before Holy Thursday. But I chose this particular Mass because, one, it's not known here, and then it's also my favorite. So we're going to take the first Kyrie right now, and we're going to go through this with the note names, and just get the melody for the first Kyrie, and we should have enough time for that, or at least half the first Kyrie. So, the clef that we're using here is what? Do clef. Okay, so the top line is do. So our first note is what? La. There we go. So let me clear the board. Very good. So la. First two notes are la la. Then the next one is. Okay, first note's la, second note, la, third note, sol, fourth, la, fifth,
Do.
next,
T.
okay,
La.
there we go.
So.
So, okay,
La.
okay, let's say the note names again. So, la, la, sol, la, do, ti, la, sol, la again. La, la, sol, la, do, ti, la, sol, la. Okay. Now we're going to put pitch to that. Okay. La, la, sol, la, do, ti, la, sol, la. Again. La, la, sol, la, do, ti, la, sol, la. Again. La, la, sol, la, do, ti, la, sol, la. Okay, let's look at the next phrase. First note,
La.
la. Next one,
So.
so. Okay.
Fa.
Fa. Okay.
Mi.
Re. We jump. We skip fa. We skip mi. We skip the space. So we jump down from fa to re, and then the last note, mi. Now go back up to the mi. So let's say those, that cluster. So la, so, fa,
Fa.
re,
Re.
mi. Again. La, so, fa, re,
Re.
mi. Sing it. La, so, fa, re, mi. One more time. La, so, fa, re, mi. Again. La, so, fa, re, mi. Now let's put the two clusters together. La, sol, la, do, ti, la, sol, la. La, sol, fa, re, mi. Okay. And then the last phrase completes the word eleison. So first note, mi. Second, so. Okay.
La.
La, re. We're down bottom. Okay.
Mi.
Mi,
So.
so, fa, mi, fa,
Re.
re, re. Yes. Okay. So let's do that together. Say the note names. Mi,
Mi.
so, la, re, mi, so, fa, mi, re, fa, re, re. Sorry. Okay, we'll say them again. Mi, so, la, re, mi, so, fa, mi, fa, re, re. Okay, and Stasia was playing the melody as we were saying it. So let's put some notes to this. Mi, sol, la, re, mi, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, re. Again. Mi, sol, la, re, mi, sol, fa, mi, re. Okay, again. Mi, sol, la, re, mi, sol, fa, mi, fa, re. Okay, now let's do the whole top line. La, sol, la, do, ti, la, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, sol, la, re, mi, sol, fa, mi, fa, re, re. Okay, a lot of notes to remember. Okay, and try to count the spaces at the same time. It gets tricky. What I've done so far today, in the space of 45 minutes, we did in 3 days. Solid at the seminary. So it took us 3 days just to get to this point. We spent a day and a half, that's morning and afternoons, a day and a half learning the scale, as well as when we got tired of singing, the clefs and some basic theory was taught to us. And after learning the scale, then we just started. He would point to different lines. We would have to say what note he was pointing at. And then finally, when we got through that, on the third day, we started picking apart a piece of chant this way. So, if you are stumbling over the note names. That is understandable. I'm trying to cram into a short amount of time what took us 3 days. But next month, when we pick up our class again, we'll go back through this. I will do also a little bit of scale work as well, making sure just the scale is familiar to us, that we all know the scale, and then we can also resume looking at this. I didn't want this first class to be just lecture and straight drill. I wanted to actually try to learn a couple pieces and actually do a little bit of singing. The next class I will do a little bit of drill work, just to make the scale a little more familiar to us, so that we can pick apart these pieces a little easier. Okay, that being said, I'm going to do what every lecturer dreads doing, but has to do. Open the floor for questions. Yes.
On the hymn to St. John the Baptist,
Okay.
the fifth measure there, you said it started off as so, la, sa. Why is
So, la, so, yeah.
yes? Well, you call it S-A there, and I
Oh.
noticed. I noticed.
Yeah,
you
okay,
did-
it was my sloppy handwriting. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was it.
That was it. Sometimes the note is referred to as sol, S-O, and sometimes sol, S-O-L. S-O-L, sol, because that is the first syllable of the word. S-O, because that's the way Sound of Music did it. I don't know. Yes?
It says here in one of the pages I just read that the reason why they dropped the L is because it was only 2 letters.
Oh,
in-
for all the others?
For all the others.
Okay, that would make sense. Anything else? Veronica?
In the Kyrie song, we just sang, in the do clef, why is the law a line lower than in this one?
Okay. Do it by demonstrating. There's a staff lined with the do clef drawn in shorthand. So this line is do, right? Okay. So the space below it is a T, and then this line is a La. See, the do clef tells us which line is do. It doesn't tell us that the first note is do. So do clef tells us that line, any note that lands on that line is do. So by deduction, we count down do, ti, la, and so the first note of the Kyrie ends up being la. I hope I didn't make you more confused than you already were.
So if I want to start do on a B on the piano, I can do that? And then-
As long as you keep the half step,
So
so,
does that need to go down to B flat?
so you just simply play if you want to start do at B, you play the B scale.
So I don't know what that is, does that go to B flat?
So is there only 2 clefs?
Yes, only 2 clefs, so. Could you demonstrate the starting do on a B and do on a D
Okay.
for a minute?
So with the Kyrie?
No, just the scale.
Oh. That was
Okay, and then down to D,
B to D, low
and then scale up. Okay. In both cases, she kept the half steps between mi, fa, mi, do. You can place do wherever you feel comfortable, as long as you keep the half steps properly. It's a little different than what we're used to with modern notation, but
So
You
you can
transpose it.
basically transpose the music to whatever note you want to, just you're reading where the note goes.
yes, the correct interval.
Okay,
Yes.
the question that I think some of us are feeling is, with modern notation, we don't even think of what a half step is unless you're thinking of going to a flat or a sharp. And that's not the case here. A half step is just a location in amongst your scale, and that's all it is. And we really can't hear it other than we're going to the next note. Is that right?
No, the, okay, you can actually, there is a difference between the half steps, okay? This is a half step, okay, and this is a full step, so, let's see, how to demonstrate, fa, mi, re. The difference between re and mi is closer, if you want to use a distance, is closer between mi, fa and mi than the distance between mi and re. Fa, mi, re, mi, fa. So you can hear that, it's essentially half a step. The interval, it's half the interval.
Is that because it's a minor? In modern notation, they call it a minor key. Is that what you're talking about? Is that the same thing? No?
I wouldn't know.
No, they do not have minors and majors in Gregorian chant.
So Chris, you're just trying to clarify by that the answer is yes, there are sharps and flats. Is that what you're saying? Because with half steps, there would have to be flats and sharps.
It depends on what key you put it in, that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
depends on what key
Depending
you
on
put
what
it in.
key, like you could have, if it's in the key of C, there's no flats.
No black keys
and no
played.
Sharps.
But if you put it in the key of B, then you have to play black key.
Right, but with the half steps, obviously somewhere you're gonna run into those
Yes.
flats and sharps, right?
Yeah, and it's the structure of chant is a completely different way of thinking about musical structure than modern notation. We're going to go through the scale next month. This is the structure of chant, is the scale. Not necessarily the keyboard. So full interval, half. As long as you keep those distances, you can start do wherever you want to. So we'll try to clarify that a little more next week. It's kind of a mental shift, especially for those who know modern notation, to shift gears and rethink the structure of music, to learn it this way. The chant was written for the human voice. Gregorian chant was written for singing. In fact, I sung Holy Week once with Dr. Andrew Childs when he was in Richfield, Connecticut. And he's an opera tenor by profession. And he can sight read modern notation, just pick up anything and sing it. And as a result, he could also sight read Gregorian chant notation. And he told me that he wished modern notation was as easy to read as Gregorian chant notation. The notation is written for sight reading, for singing purposes. But the structure is, as I say, it's different. It takes a little getting used to. Anything else?
So all the rest of those intervals are full steps, that the only half step in that scale is between mi and fa,
Yes, half step. And then if we tack another,
to the next one.
another, yeah, the
Next
interval
octave.
between the two octaves, yes, is a half step. 'cause, if it helps you to learn, to actually learn the scale, use the Sound of Music. Actually, to be able to sing the scale, but the only half step is here and between the two octaves. Sometimes, I will say this though, sometimes the T can be flatted, but we'll get to that. There's a special mark for that. Sometimes the T can be flatted, but that's the only location. And it's
Like an accidental?
accidental. So, yeah, you're singing along and suddenly here's a flatted T. Just because it sounds good.
Sounds better.
But occasionally. Anything else? Okay, we shall finish. And we might as well say a prayer. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Ghost.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
St. Thomas Becket.
Pray for
In the
us.
Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen.